When you're ready, Councillor Cairns.
Sorry, boss.
That's all right. No worries. All right. So look, well, firstly, it's our first meeting for the year, so happy New Year, everyone. And we've got a busy day or maybe two. Just in advance of that today, I have talked with staff, and unless I hear otherwise here, we might try and keep pressing on to complete today if we can. So we'll assess that at around 5, but we do have the chambers booked for the day and staff are lined up for that purpose. So it'd be my intention that we press on and get as much done today as we can, if not all. So is there anyone that's got any commitments outside of after 5 today? Okay. Not suggesting we'll be here to midnight, so you should be all right to get home for your whiskey, Councillor Becky.
Thank you.
Point noted. There is a special surprise this morning. I had a lovely text from former Councillor Doody, who wants to make us a batch of her finest scones. So 10:30, she's bringing them. I said, please join us as well. We can't just come and drop them off and not join us. So that's a nice treat, and I think staff put that into the councillors' area there. So that was really nice at Wendy. All right. So any apologies for today's meeting? No apologies. Any conflicts of interest to be recorded? Or if you discover those throughout, just let us know so that can be recorded. Right. All right. What I propose doing now is there'll be the overview, and then we are going to deal with report 4.1, followed by I'll go to number 5, which is budgets, and we'll do the pro forma at that point, and we'll see where we're at in terms of time there. We'll break morning TV and we'll press on first to start with things, but you'll see the order that's in there. Can just, before Greg does his overview, just Greg, can I just acknowledge, I think that summary that's been prepared is absolutely outstanding at the start, so well done to you and the team. And Jeff, just to acknowledge the effort that's gone in from our staff. This is broadly in line with what was indicated, well, it is in line with what was indicated in our long-term plan, and thank you for picking up on that and finding a way forward that keeps us in that general direction. Noting that I believe that the government's added 0.4% or thereabouts, you might just want to highlight that, I'm sure you will, to our burden, which we had to address, I think, to get to 4.98, which is what we're indicating here. It has been an outstanding piece of work, so thank you, team. So that should hopefully make deliberations, team, easier today, but we'll see how we go through. I'll run it as we normally do, which is we'll do a pro forma, and then if there's amendments or items, we've got a whiteboard which they'll be put on, and we'll discuss those items as we normally would towards the end, and see if there's a willingness to see those added in or subtracted, as the case may be. All right, Greg and Jeff, we hand over to you now. Thank you very much.
We'll just press on to the overview. I think there's a couple of stuff online today. Work through sickness.
Kelly's joining in for hers, isn't she? Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. Forced for me to do an introduction, an overview of where we're sitting, because today involves a lot of detail in terms of the packs, but to give you the context, I'm trying to paint a picture for you. So I'll cover key financial headlines, what's happening in terms of rate increases, our financial plan and financial risks, budget changes that we've made, also touch on the consultation document topics, which are actually in that document. So, year 2 of the LTP, that should be easy, shouldn't it, really, because we only adopted this budget about 7 months ago, so you'd think it'd just roll through and be straightforward. Life's never quite as straightforward as that. Things change. Some of the assumptions we made don't prove to be quite spot on, and as Mayor's just indicated, the government does things as well. So there's various factors which impact on the budget. So the budget holders put together their budget essentially based on those year 2 budgets, which allowed for a certain amount of inflation. They've largely stuck with those, but where they've had to make changes and increases, etc., they've done that, and they're what are set out in your packs, and we'll go through those over the day. Management team then got involved, as we do, seeking to make changes and adjustments. We then presented where we got to the workshop back in December. I gave you certain guides and information there, and you gave us certain advice back in terms of where you wanted things to end up. And that's what we've worked to do since December, to bring back to you today a budget which we think should meet your expectations, but also keep the council in a sound financial position, which is what I think we all want. So the next increases I'm going to talk about are reflected in the budget packs. So that's important because it means any changes you make during the next day or so will impact on the base increases. So they're all taken into account in terms of what you've got. So let's go on to the financial headlines. These are some of the numbers that matter. So as it's just been alluded to, we're indicating an average rate increase of 4.98%, so just under 5%. That is an average, and I'll come back to that again in a minute. So that's very much in line with the long-term plan, just slightly higher, but very much in line. Our accounting operating surplus at 37 million is just slightly below what was in the long-term plan. There's various factors, ups and downs there, including maybe changes around depreciation, but also less capital revenues. But as we've talked about at the Audit and Risk Committee, the accounting surplus doesn't really tell you a great deal because it includes large adjustments for non-cash vested assets. So the funding impact statement that we prepare, which is the statutory statement, shows the operating cash surplus, and that's all the operating revenues less day-to-day expenses, excluding depreciation. And that shows a cash surplus there of 16 million, and that cash is what is required to fund the capital programme. We also get some capital revenues, but it's that cash which funds our renewals, helps pay for debt repayments, and funds our capital. That number is higher than this current year, it's higher than last financial year, but it's lower than it needs to be in the future. That number really needs to double over the next couple of years. I'll talk about that more in a minute. But we're on a financial path, we're on a plan, and this is a step towards where we need to be. But that is an important number, that represents the cash that's generated for capital expenditure. Capital programme has been reviewed, and that's reduced quite a lot from 80 million down to 61 million. That is due to two main areas. So, as you're well aware, NZTA gave us less subsidy for capital works, so the capital programme for roading has been reviewed and reduced. Also, Geraldin's team have looked at the broader programme, including the water services and in particular wastewater services, where we moved some projects out. So that programme is, I think, deliverable. Colin will talk about this a bit more later, but we believe that $61 million is a deliverable programme. Net borrowing is similar to what was in the LTP, obviously affected by reduced capital programme, but also reduced capital revenues and also our starting position. So that's pretty much on track. Net assets are a couple of $100 million above what was in the LTP, and you'll all be familiar with the revaluation of our three waters assets, and that's what's come through there. So that's quite a big lift. Just short of $3 billion now in terms of council net assets. just talk about the context for which we're doing the budget at the moment. So inflation figures came out last week, essentially stable at 2.2% for the Consumer Price Index. But as we know, the costs that impact upon local government tend to be higher than the Consumer Price Index. Forecast for the coming year is about 3.4%, but typically it's 1% or more above CPI, which is always a bit of a nuisance for us because quite right, the community see the CPI numbers, but the cost pressures on us are often different. National wages, I think, went up about 3.8% to September last year. So that's useful context. Interest rates, which does present some good news, are falling. As you know, it's fallen to 4.25% and is predicted to fall again next month. And that is helpful to us, and I'll talk a bit more about that in a minute. Longer term borrowing is still sitting sort of closer to 5%. And there is a link there to the international markets, and I'll come back to that in terms of risk later. But you know, that's reasonable long-term interest rates there. Unemployment is trending upwards. Building sense over the last 12 months were good, strong at just short of 750, and that shows that growth in waimakariri is coming strong. And as we know, Canterbury as a whole has been, as the media would say, bucking the trend, with good growth numbers here. In one sense, this is quite a good financial environment for doing the budget, stable inflation, falling interest rates. But of course, those two things perhaps indicate some economic weakness nationally. So the context is stability, but not necessarily the strongest economy. Well, we've got a busy year ahead for the organisation. On top of delivering all the day-to-day services, there's a large number of big projects impacting upon us. So we've got the district plan, which is due to be notified sometime around the middle of the year, and then there are processes there in terms of appeals, etc. And that has been a big piece of work and will continue to be a big piece of work in this coming year. The computer enterprise system, so that's our new computer software, is being implemented from the 1st of July this year. This will affect all staff, affects the whole organisation quite significantly. So there's an awful lot of training to be done for staff before July. There's an awful lot of work to be done by the computer program team that are working on it. And there'll be a lot of work after the 1st of July. But we all know what it's like when you get a new computer system. It all becomes a bit harder for a while, or trying to do things as efficiently as we used to, but it will become harder for everybody. So just recognise that it's always the way. And so it's going to be a fair amount of pressure on staff in terms of the new computer system. We've got local water done well, which is affecting the whole sector, and a big project that we are dealing with. And we've got a small thing called elections, I think, later on in the year. So
Performance review, yes.
a certain amount of performance review for you later in the year. We've talked about the capital programme, that's still significant, over $60 million. And of course, I've just talked about growth is continuing, and that continues to put pressure on the services. So I've been here less than a year. It's been a really busy year. It felt like longer. And the last 10, 11 months, the next year for the council is going to be busier still. Rates increases. Well, I gave you the headline number, just under 5%, similar to the LTP. One of the big pressures has been around water services. In particular, we've had depreciation, the revaluation, which flows straight through to depreciation, which to a large degree flows through to the rates. So that is an impact. But in actual fact, there's more pressures on water as well because of maintenance costs have been under pressure and increased, but also water regulation, which the government's currently consulting on, what we're anticipating costs of around $360,000 additional for water regulation. So those costs are all putting pressure on water rates. The general rate and roading rates increases are less than the long-term plan in terms of how it's run through. So we've got this split situation where the district-wide rates are tending to go up by less than 5%, but the targeted rates, particularly the water services rates, tending to go up by more than 5%. So although we talk about an average of being under 5%, what you'll find is that those properties that have water and wastewater services will tend to be 5% or above. Properties which don't have water services will tend to be below 5%, or if it's a high capital value, they'll tend to be below 5% as well. So just understand that when we're talking averages, it doesn't affect everybody in the same way. Usefully though, the Rank Euro average typical property rate comes out at about 4.9%, and that's a good indication of a largish group of ratepayers at about that level. But just to be clear, the average doesn't tell the full story. I've shown you this chart before. It's our financial plan, I struggle to say the word strategy sometimes with my slight speech impediment, but I'll use the word financial plan. It's our 10-year financial plan as shown in the LTP adjusted for what's been happening. What it shows is the extent to which, or the percentage of our revenue as a percentage of expenditure. So if we spend $100 and only receive $96, it's an orange bar at 96%. So what it shows is last year, this current year, and the budget we're talking about, we will be receiving slightly less than we are spending. That expenditure includes full depreciation. What we need to get to really is that 100% position where the bars turn green. We've got a nice steady path to get there. It's important that the council does get there because that is where sound long-term financial health lies in balancing the books. Now this measure is not a perfect measure. You can argue about how good it is, but it paints a very clear picture there to me, and it should paint a very clear picture there to you. There have been some costs over the last couple of years which have made that picture the way it is. That would include things like the district plan review and the computer project that we've talked about, and also the Canterbury Museum redevelopment project, which comes in as an operating expenditure, although it relates to capital expenditure. So there are factors, but that's stepping forward and increasing revenues by more than costs over the coming years is really important. A little bit on financial risks. Mentioned earlier that inflation is likely to run above CPI for local government. So that always tends to put that extra pressure. So that control of costs becomes a bit harder for us because inflation tends to be a bit higher. Interest rates are falling in New Zealand, and we've got to a slightly unusual position where interest rates here are lower than the large international markets, such as in the US. It probably won't continue for the long term. Typically our rates, long-term rates, tend to follow the US rates. So long-term interest rates might increase, and the extent to which, therefore, they fall at the moment may be affected by those international factors outside our control, and we just have to go with the flow. But just to be aware, there are some risks there. There's always risk around growth for growth councils, so we rely on that growth to grow the rating base from the services that we're putting in place, and we rely on it for our development contributions revenue. So if growth falls away, growth councils do have a problem. We've had lots of good steady growth in Canterbury. We believe that's continuing, but it's always a factor. In a weaker economy, it could change, so something to be aware of. A specific risk is over the coming budget year is contract renewals. So we've got the roading contract due for renewal later this year, and then reserves early next year. Those are two big expenditure areas. If contract rates increase, that will leave it a challenge for the council. It would involve either increasing budgets to keep up levels of service, or possibly impacts on levels of service. So those decisions are ahead if they happen, but just to be aware that that's a risk ahead. So budget change, what have we put through in addition to what the budget managers all sought to do in terms of their operational areas? There's some changes made within the packs, but I'm going to talk to ones which are sort of the ones which we've done more across the board outside of the detailed line-by-line budgets. There's a big change around the mowing program which was reported to you a couple of times, approved at the October 24 council meeting, so that's reflected in the budget. We've had a significant depreciation increase on water, which is about 1.4 million in terms of total cost. We're funding typically about 70% of depreciation for water services. That flows through to about $7 million rates impact, so you can see the challenge there. We have reduced our interest rate assumption down from 4.6% to 4.1%. That's reduced cost by about $800,000. That mostly flows through to rates, but not all, because some of our borrowing relates to development contributions, which are not funded through rates. Mentioned water regulation costs. That's both quality regulation and economic regulation under the local water done well reforms. Out of consultation at the moment, expected cost for us $360,000. That has been built into the budget. It could change, but it'd be very surprised if it changed substantially or got removed. So that, as was alluded to earlier, is probably a 0.4% rates increase just in that alone, and has obviously a big impact on the water rates. One thing we've done is removed the rates discount. So under our rating policy at the moment, if you pay your rates in full by the first instalment penalty date, which is sometime in August, you get a 4% discount on most of the district-wide rates. So that for a typical property could be a reduction of $80 to $90 in terms of discount. It doesn't include the water rates. And that's taken up by something like 1,900 ratepayers. There's more than 1,900 rating units involved because some are multiple owners of multiple properties. But that's a cost in terms of giving that discount. If we remove that, it would reduce our budget by $195,000. So we've done that. So if we were to reverse that, it would give us a $195,000 problem in effect. It is a matter we have to consult on. It's a rating policy matter and a rating act matter. So it will be part of our consultation process on that. So as I say, it does affect a number of ratepayers. But remember, it's the balance of ratepayers who then actually pay for that discount that's being given. We've reduced the security budget, so for meetings like this, we will have security in place, but in general terms, there'll be less security in place for meetings. So that was a $25,000 adjustment. Something else we've done is try to allocate our professional indemnity insurance in a different way. I've probably hinted at this before. The professional indemnity insurance premium went up substantially in this current financial year, and it's over $900,000 now. Most of our risk in relation to professional indemnity relates to things like resource consents, building consents, and limbs, where we're giving information and proving things. If things go wrong, we can be held liable, as we well know. Previously, insurance was being allocated just generally across all our activities as an overhead, but we've taken part of it now and allocated specifically to those areas, so that has an impact on fees, and so leaves some money that the income from relates to fees. I think more could be done in that area in the future. We've done $250,000 this year, because obviously we need to keep our fees. We don't want significant shifts in fees, which causes a problem. So we're doing it in a balanced way, but I think it's something that reflects the reality that those are the risks that we are covering, and those that impose those risks on us, in effect, should see it in those fees. Initially, our budget had $40,000 for community board appeals, or say resource consent appeals. That was in the budget, but we've taken it out, so there's currently no allowance to support community boards in appeals process. I know that's been a matter of discussion here before. You may well want to reflect on that, but at the moment there is no budget, and support would be provided as usual by staff. We talked about the changes to the capital programme. Confident it can be delivered. As I say, Colin will touch on that later. As part of the process, we will release a consultation document, which will a number of topics inviting comment. Obviously, submitters can comment on any aspect of the budget, but we'll invite comment on specific topics. So we'll have the delivery of water services, that's local water done well, and our proposal for waimakariri there for consultation. We'll have consultation on the revised roading programme, because of course these decisions were taken after the LTP decisions were made in terms of what projects will proceed, because information wasn't available until after the long-term plan was adopted. So give the public a chance to comment on the changes made to the roading programme. We've got proposed changes to the rates policy, so that's both the sort of used and inhabited properties definitions, and also the rates discount that I've talked about. And we've got changes to the dollar amounts in the development contributions policy, and we're required to consult on the changes to that policy. That's just dollar changes, not really policy changes. And the document will also include an explanation as to why the rates have been moved. The key dates coming up. Obviously, we're here now, the budget meetings. Aim is to approve the draft annual planning consultation document on the 18th of February, and I hope we can achieve that. So then they'll be out for a month's consultation, 14th of March, 14th of April. Hearings early May, deliberations late May, and adoption mid-June. So a very typical programme ahead of the council. Dates you'll be familiar with. So just to sum up really, look, it's not been easy putting the budget together, but I'd say, you know, I've done lots of budgets, and they're never easy, so nothing new there really. There's always things to take into account. I've mentioned earlier though, it is a really busy time for the organisation. Talked about computer budget changes, talked obviously about election, lots going on, so being well aware of that, pressures on the organisation. And I'll keep coming back to it, but the financial plan matters, bringing the budget into a clear balance, turning those orange bars into green bars matters. So that will be for the future council, of course, but I suspect some people around this table will still be making those decisions, let's say. There's a close link, obviously, between the amount we spend on services and the level of service that we deliver. But we all know it's not a perfect relationship, and it is possible to do more with less sometimes, or at least to do the same with less. We do strive to make efficiencies part of our work. Budget holders are very focused on achieving efficiencies. Simon is going to talk more about this shortly, in terms of what we're doing in that area. But just to reassure you, there really is a focus on efficiency on the management table and across the organisation. And final comment, 4.98%, under 5%. I've not given you much space to move really. There's nowhere to hide. If you want to make changes to the budget, if you want to make increases, I should say, to expenditure, we will need to find matching savings if we want to keep the rates at below 5%. So it's all very tight. Thank you.
Thanks, Greg. Again, just to reiterate the appreciation of the work that's gone in to this. My understanding is that at this level, I haven't heard it officially, but we would be one of, if we maintain it, will be one of the lowest in Canterbury. I think for the last 5 odd years, we've been certainly leaders in that space. So I think you've given us a good challenge there, especially around striking that balance about keeping the level of service maintained, which we know our public really do highly value, and the other aspects. So I think, putting in, there's a consequence for doing so. So thank you for making those points really clear. Sorry, Jeff, is there anything you wanted to add before I open it to questions?
Probably what I take out of the review and what we've been dealing with over the last 3 years is effectively what we're seeing here is council struggling with ongoing inflation, which has affected our valuation of our assets, which affects depreciation, which is, give or take, around about 20% of our operating expenses. And so what you're seeing at the moment is councils around the country struggling to meet what's required under the Act, and that's to balance your books against expenditure to make sure that you're funding 100% of it. The financial strategy which we adopted in the LTP was to actually address that increase through spreading it across the 5 years, and that's the strategy that we've got in place, and that's the table that Greg showed you there around why it shows in the orange and then it recovers in year 4 and 5 to the green. You're going to hear a lot in the media at the moment, and I think central government will point the finger back at local authorities that their rate increases are too high. I think that's going to be evident in the papers, and it's evident in some of the draft increases I've heard across Canterbury just recently. I think what we've also got to remember is that we're a growth council, and generally growth councils can't meet a CPI, and it's something we're going to have to explain to the public again and again and again in our LTPs and annual plans, is that CPI for council is not a reality. It's we run to local government cost index, which is in the bag of the items which form this CPI. It's impossible for us to meet that because of the, if we see a drop in the New Zealand dollar, that's going to affect appreciation more than the CPI. And so we're struggling with those sorts of things. To get it down to under 5%, I think personally, I think it's a really good effort. And I think we've got to remember that strategy that Greg pointed to, that we do have to keep to the strategy, and that strategy is based on the philosophy that it's better that the dollar is in our ratepayers' pocket than in ours for depreciation, but we do have to recover that. If you take our asset replacement out beyond the 40 years, and we've got long-term assets, if we don't fund depreciation and hold reserves for it, then we can get into problems in future generations, and we've got modelling that shows that. I just wanted to stress upon the fact that we're still dealing with inflation. The bill numbers that they forecast that we put in the LTP, from memory, around about 1.5% higher than what we actually forecast. So that's something we had to struggle with this annual plan. And you've seen a number of other things that we've had to pull out of the budget. One of the ones that people may not like is the removal of the discounted rates, but those people that pay the rates ahead of time can always invest that money. It's a bit of a debate for the council to think about, but we're not at the liberty now to provide that sort of discount ahead of time, particularly with the budgets and things. I just wanted to stress upon those 2 points around ongoing inflation, higher than the CPI, and we have to fund depreciation under the Act.
Thanks, Jeff. And just perhaps just to remind colleagues, just that we're progressively also each year going to find around 2%, which funds the earthquake loan recovery costs, plus the stadium. It's around that 2%. Jeff, is that correct? It's around that sort of that we've got to, before we do anything else, we've got to find each year. So you mentioned about the discount. I think that's referred to in the pages there. Greg, is it? Are we one of only? There were only two other councils that were providing that early payment discount. Is that correct? From what you discovered.
So we put a request out to the sector, and only 2 councils came back and identified. There could be others, but certainly it's not common. And those 2 that do discounts do a smaller discount than we're doing, more like 2% as opposed to our 4%. So we're slightly out of line with the sector, let's say.
And it's about 200,000 that early payment discount is what its real cost is. So colleagues don't want to do that, then it's about finding another 200,000 savings. Is that correct? Right. Okay, so far I've got indicated Councillor Redmond, Councillor Williams and Councillor Edmund. We just contain these to questions, team, if that would be good.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just following on your point about the scrapping of the proposed rates discount, I understand the reason for consultation is because of that change. I've heard a neighbouring council are looking at a 15% increase with no consultation. So my question is, what roughly is the cost of consultation? And do we get a benefit by doing it?
I don't have a number. I don't think we try to cost that, and it's a lot of staff time, but we don't necessarily cost it specifically.
We generally work on a number around about 50,000 it would cost to do that, give or take. It's not a number that it's time and effort as well mainly, but we have postage and production of papers and programs and stuff like that. We actually do an advertising campaign which advertises and promotes whatever we're trying to consult on, so that the public have a reasonable basis to make a decision. We've got about 3 or 4 things in there which generally wouldn't have to consult on, but when you change policy, you do. I would suggest that a council that has a 15% increase and it didn't signal that in its LTP, it should be consulting with its community.
Yeah, my question was whether that 195,000 is actually that figure when we look at the cost of consulting. And my second question, just broadly, Greg, and it may or may not happen in this current year, the government has signalled they're doing away with the 4 wellbeings and looking at a different priority for local government. Do you think this plan, which seems to me to be pretty lean and mean, would satisfy the government's criteria?
Hard to know would be my answer. I mean, certainly there's nothing in there that I would point to as being outside core services, if I use that term. We know that from our point of view, core services do involve work with the community and do community development, work, etc. Nothing from my point of view would be beyond core services, but until we know really the government's work programme, we don't know. Just to come back to your previous point around consultation, the rates discount will be consulted as part of the annual plan, so there's no additional cost involved in consulting.
Just on core services, here in India, it really revolves around roading, pipes, underground infrastructure, but try and take a library off the community and see what happens.
Yes, we all had seen what happens in the past when services are proposed, so think very carefully about that, team. Councillor Williams and sorry, was that Councillor Fulton as well? Councillor Williams.
Thank you, Greg. Could you go back to, I think, one of your first slides, please? The one with the capital, 80 million capital. Yeah, that's one here. Can you explain the capital program where in the long-term plan it was 25-26 was 80 million and the draft of this plan now is 61 million. Has the net borrowing hasn't actually altered much because $19 million difference in the capital. So are we funding something else? Can you explain it a bit to me, please?
So 3 factors: less subsidy from NZTA, so less capital revenue there, less development contribution revenue funding, and our opening position based upon our 23-4 actual results. The cash surplus generated there in terms of our funding impact statement number to talk about would be lower. So it's those things going through the model, and the main changes just to our general assets and liabilities, which will have a cash impact, but but in general it's those less capital revenues as well, and a different opening position.
So why would the debt be going up when we're not going to be doing so much in the roading from the side of it? I know we will be increasing a wee bit their costs, but the actual debt is going from 231 proposed to 232, but the capital program is dropping 19 million. But it's not $19 million in what you've just implied. I can't see.
So it's a less capital revenues and a different opening position that was in the but those are the factors as it runs through the model.
So we're going to be using, excuse me, with a lot more of our capital spending on non-capital stuff, is that correct? For the borrowing.
No, we only use, we do use borrowing for things like the computer project, because although it doesn't classify as capital expenditure, it has a benefit over a longer period. But no, we wouldn't generally use borrowing for any operating costs other than a major project like that.
Councillor Blakey.
Thank you. Burl have forecast 3.4% inflation. You'll all recall Jeff explaining to us about a year ago that Burl's estimate at the time for that year was about 8 or 9%, and it came out at 16% across the board for all councils. In other words, they screwed up quite majorly. My question, why having got that spectacularly wrong last year, should we put much emphasis on what Burl are telling us for this coming year?
It's a bit unfair to pick on Burl. They do provide some really good information that we rely on. Yes, we do rely on it. The local government sector employ them to do that job for us. Generally, they get around about get it right, but I don't think any economist in the country at the time got that number right. It was, and that's around our philosophy. That's our methodology that we're using in the LTP. Is we're hoping this inflation doesn't go on and on and on, and it's starting to get under control now, which means we should be able to recover that through our rates. It will mean potentially that our rates would be a percent or two higher than what they normally would be. But this council is in a very good position that it's accomplished a lot of its program. It's very good infrastructure. It's not dealing totally with what they call the infrastructure deficit through New Zealand. We're in a very good position. Our assets are managed really well. We've taken the steps quite some years ago to actually renew our infrastructure. Our buildings are all above 87% of standard, so we're in a good position. Other councils are still attending to those issues, and you hear that coming out of the likes of Wellington, where they're struggling with some of the older buildings, which are earthquake-proof. Thank you.
Councillor Paulson.
Thank you. We heard today about the figures that support this study that we've got a growth council, so it's clearly we have. At the same time, we've got 750 odd building consents for this year. So government talks.
It was last year.
It was last year. Last year. Yeah. Government talks about building faster and stronger economy. So have we actually got the conditions to go any faster and hotter in terms of our growth? I mean, if we have another 100 and we start building consents for this coming year, do we actually have the rating base, the capability to support that? Is it sustainable? Who's the best place to answer?
Also, yes. And the reason for that is, I think you have to go back probably nearly 20 years now. If you take the high forecast of New Zealand stats, they say that we should be providing for an additional 495 new properties or dwellings a year. We've been almost doubling that for 20 years now. And so we've been responding to the normal growth in this district for years, and we'll continue to do that. a draft, a proposed district plan identifies through spatial planning and the growth areas to continue to provide for that. But I've heard through the media just recently, and it's been a bit unfair, that they don't actually identify the fact that we've been batting way above not just an average but a high New Zealand stats number for years, and we're continuing to meet that demand. We will, and we've shown that through our planning forecasts.
A certain developer keeps speculating we don't have enough capacity, as we've read, as it keeps trying to spin that. As you've seen, it's complete rubbish. This district is more than capable of catering for, as you've heard from our staff. And also it's about sustainable growth, not growth at any cost. And we've got plenty is coming on stream, and plus the work the district plans putting together, plus the work that we've been doing with our Greater Christchurch partners. We're in particularly good shape here. So it always amuses me when I see that starting to be spun because of an argument someone's trying to put up to get a development over the line. We're in a very strong position here, and we certainly don't need one up the road to make those numbers work, as they would see.
Secondary that. Do we as a council, we talk about the wellbeing, etc., do we have a vision for the type of economy and community we want to support? Government's talked about a tourism-led economy, a service sector-led economy, and that works for parts of the country. But do we want to be a dormitory economy? Basically servicing others, other Christchurch or whatever. So just related to that, in the context of growth, what sort of economy do we want to support, and do we have a strategy to support that long term?
Yes.
and what is it? Is it a mixed agriculture of sort of urban economy? Is it what?
I'd like that debate to be left to when we look at the planning regulation papers and work through that at that time. But this council has a number of strategies that support the type of growth. The proposed district plan is also another document which points towards that type of economy and the way we want to grow. This district just shows that the continual growth that we're going through at the moment is showing that it's not just a nice place that people want to come and work and live in, but also starting to attract really good business down here as well. The type of business that you want.
And for the benefit of David and Maxine, who are sitting here, we're definitely in that space. Just look at Sutton Tools, which through lots of effort we kept here. And we've got Hallmark, we've got Daniel Smith, plus the mixed use and all the good things. We've got Harvey Norman here. We're attracting a lot in this district now because of the hard work that's gone in over the last number of years to make sure we have the right environment to get and attract those people here. So I think Jeff's right, it's a chat for later, but I'm very comfortable and confident with where we're heading because of that great work. I think we should be proud of that effort. Keeping Sutton Tools here, they could have easily never gone to Australia or Auckland, and they didn't because they backed our local economy here. So it's good things because that's local jobs, real jobs here, and highly skilled jobs in our local economy. All right, any other questions? All right, thank you, Greg. Again, we really appreciate that overview. Set the scene really well for us today, so thank you. All right, as I indicated, we're going to move now to 4.1 first, and then following that we'll go to 5. Just bear in mind, colleagues, that this work was undertaken through our workshops and briefings that we've had over the course of the last 6 or so months. So thank you, Simon, for bringing the report to us, and we'll discuss the way forward with that during that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor and Councillors, and good morning to you all. I know we have a really busy day ahead of us, so I'll largely take the report as read. It focuses on 2 main themes. One is, as the Mayor has described, in October, the Council was provided with an opportunity to provide staff with ideas and suggestions about potential efficiencies and savings. That opportunity was extended by way of email following those sessions. There were 34 suggested opportunities for us to look at, and we undertook that as part of the development of this annual plan. So this annual plan in front of you today includes all of the work that has been done around this as well. So the appendix in this report you'll see has categorised those suggestions. Those that have been labelled documented or already being done are included in this annual plan. And there is a list of around 22 of those that we are proposing to continue to investigate, but due to the nature of them, it just takes a little bit longer than we have for this annual plan to investigate and provide sound recommendations on. The other part of this report reflects the work that's being undertaken and brought to you in a briefing in December around a cost efficiencies policy, which is underway, and you'll see in section 4 the principles from which that, section 3.7, you will see that those are the principles on the basis of which we're building that efficiency policy. Essentially, it looks at all of the things that we're already doing, all of the processes we're already undertaking to look for efficiencies and cost savings as part of these type of processes, and it provides good guidelines on those, and then it also provides guidance on how we can continue to look for and investigate efficiencies in the way we do things. That's looking to come back to you as a full final draft for consideration around March, April this year, following the feedback we got from you in December. Other than that, I'll take the report as read, and I'm very happy to answer any questions.
Thank you. Jeff and Simon, my understanding is that we're probably one of the first councils that's developed something like this. Would that be, if I picked it up correctly, I'll have that on the record if we are.
I think so. I'm not aware of many others that have brought together that information in a single box.
Then bring a framework together for consideration. So, thank you. Questions? Okay, and obviously there's the appendix which has the suggestions from colleagues and the ordering. And we went through that in our discussions as we talked of, so it hasn't departed from that discussion. Right. Okay, so it's no questions there, so there's a recommendation that someone prepared to move. Oh, sorry, do you have a question, Jo? You're going to move? Oh, you want to move? Sorry, yes, I was getting there, thank you. Councillor Ward wishes to move, seconded the Deputy Mayor. Councillor Ward.
I just want to say a big thank you to everyone and to Simon and the team for listening to our suggestions in developing and finishing off the annual report and fine-tuning and accepting some of the efficiencies that we have suggested. And I know that you'll all be working really, really hard to make sure that we continue to have savings and be more efficient where we can. And I just want to compliment you on the work that you do. So you and the team, thank you very much.
Thank you. Deputy Mayor.
Well, really little to add apart from the fact that it's a well-written body of a report, and I think it will, as time goes on, this framework will evolve into and very easily changeable to meet the needs that we need to meet as we go on. And I think that it's well written, and I think it's a damn good start to where we need to be, and it's just another check and measure that we can put across everything that we do. So well done.
And also as comments, and just as a sort of indication and a question before, one of the first, if not the first, to develop a framework for that consideration. Each year we come up with ideas of savings, but it's actually about, and efficiencies, it's about, how do you actually, and where do you take those? So thank you to staff for the work that's gone into producing this. So it actually gives the framework for that fuller consideration, and actually every year we do our budgets, peppered through always savings and options, and you'll see that, colleagues, through today where there are some items there that have been taken out because that's an item that's been suggested, well, there's a saving there if we want to do that. Last year there was a number that were brought out. Every year we find those, so constantly looking at how we can do better procurement and finding better ways. I know our council's open to that, and certainly our staff are, so thank you for giving us the framework today, and I fully support us progressing that direction. Thank you. Is there any further speakers? Either reply if you wish, Councillor. Okay, I'm going to put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Declare that carried. Thanks, Simon. All right. So now come to item 5, which is just a recommendation there around, so I'll move from the chair that noting that budget resolutions will be considered pro forma during the meeting collectively prior to the conclusion of the meeting. Basically means everything contained in here is approved, and if we wish to make changes, then it's by standard amendment as we would normally get whiteboarded and considered as we go through. Someone can second. I've moved that you're going to second it. There's no discussion needed for that. I'll put that. All those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Contrary? Declare it carried. Alright, so we'll get ourselves ordered here. So the first budgets we're doing are utilities and roading. Mr. Perry, Jared, if you want to come forward. And so we've got our budget papers here. So Jared will take us through some introductory commentary, and then we'll deal with his departments as we go through. So I think the first up after the initial is roading. Is that correct? And then maybe some.
Yes, we're happy to take the utilities and roading in the order that's in the agenda. One thing I would note is the development commission's policy. That would be best if we talk about when we do project delivery unit budgets. Well, we've got Colin. Overall, I started going to pretty much table the reports as read with just some specific comments. So Joanne started.
And there's a 5.1 report we will deal with as part of this as well. So where would you like to deal with that report?
I'm just looking for 5. I'm just looking for 5.1 being.
It's a roading. It's recommended pages 1 to 32. It's a roading recommendation in our main budget papers.
Oh, sure, yes. Okay.
So you just let us know when you want to do this.
Yeah, so all of the so the roading commentary will be taken in the order that's in the agenda, as will all the others, like through orders, solid waste and so on. But we do have an additional report, which is tab 4 on the main. So you've got 2 packs of relevant on the budget meeting agenda front.
Would you like to deal with that report first, or do you want to deal with the papers first?
Well, we're happy to. So Colin's here.
This is a roading report, so.
Sorry, no, yeah, I think, look, let's just leave it until we do project delivery, you know?
Roading 1? Yeah.
Sorry, we'll do roading now.
Sorry, Jared, if I'm confusing things, but there is a roading report in our budget papers, so do you want to deal with that? Mike got that right.
It's not a separate report.
Oh, sorry, pardon me, it has picked up, I'm sorry for confusing that. Let's continue as we were, that's the commentary. Thank you.
So we'll take the roading transport activity commentary as needed. And just the key points to note is the lower level of NLTP funding than what was originally requested by council. Activities have been reprioritised, including a large number of capital projects. A multi-layered approach has been taken with those projects to either move out or allow the design portion only. This is in line with the report that was taken to council in October. Where projects relate to development, there have been some minor changes around timing. Otherwise, I am happy to take any questions that you may have.
Thank you. Just for clarity, colleagues, I was going through the summary agenda, which is what I operate off. They've been pulled into this here from the budget papers, so apologies for that. We've already moved that recommendation pro forma that's contained in there just as a before. Just a couple of questions for me to start with. This is just page 4, the Broad Road Eagle Crossing upgrade material. Are we aware why that's been raised by them, and is it reasonable? My understanding is there a number of KiwiRail are being a little challenging to a number of authorities, it would be fair to say. Is it reasonable what they're asking for here? Because my sense is from other councils there's a bit of frustration about some of where relation projects are certainly starting to come from, and the surprise that they've been raised in the way they have.
And this project certainly fits into that category where it was a surprise to staff that hadn't been discussed with us earlier. From my knowledge, the work does need to be done. I am also off to the side doing some further work around responsibilities and can bring an update to council on that in the future. In the meantime, I have included it as a line item within our budget sheet.
Thank you. I think it's the prudent approach, by the way, but it's still. The other is on page 16, which is the works associated with the William bypass. Regularly, the community, you talk to us about footpath linkage between Pegasus and Woodend, progressing that. Advise where we're at with it. My understanding is that we, correct me if I'm wrong, that we really are advocating strongly with NZTA that that project's included as part of that, and that's where our advocacy is at the present time. Is that correct?
That's correct. That's also covered on page 4 under walking and cycling projects, including the into Ravenswood Park. So staff are currently working, preparing a report for council. We're also meeting with NZTA to further discuss options for alignment of that piece of work with the Woodend bypass work. And once we've pulled all that information together, we're planning on bringing a report to council in March, which will hopefully outline the proposed path forward for council to consider.
Previously, there was questions in the sort of come through from colleagues around Old Main North Road and obviously the Oxford end Gorge Bridge there. We previously indicated that we would like to take the lead on that, Joe, and I realise you've got a big program. Is that progressing anywhere where we get to because there are bridges that are contained within our districts, and I think the priority needs to come from here. I don't think we get the same level of prioritisation, not criticising other councils, but they're nearby. Where are we at with that piece of work, and could a report be brought back in the not too distant future to signal where councillors support that direction if it's possible to achieve the achievement?
Would that be something we potentially could have a workshop session on council first, just to talk about? I think it's important that we just have a look at the issues, at the options, and then understand what sort of resourcing requirements would sit around those bridges structures being managed in-house. And if you are open to that.
That's fine with me. Colleagues here just would like to get that progressed. Thank you. If we could do that in the coming months would be great. Questions, Councillor Williams?
Yeah, thank you. On page 10, you've got the speed limits outside schools, $1 million for variable signs. Maybe we would have conviction because I noticed in the we got an email from the UNR side of it about just normal physical manual signs without. So What are we going to do?
Variable signs can either be static or electronic. So there's two different types of signs. The budget that is allowed for in here it assumes a mixture of static signs at the less busy schools and then electronic signs at the busy schools on busy roads that need more. So we are currently just working through visiting all the schools to understand what their school start time is, where the gates are. There's a whole consultation piece that is required as part of setting of school limits. So once we've got a clearer understanding of what that looks like, we'll be organising some sessions with council to just talk through that, and then that will then follow on in the future with the report.
So most of those schools you're talking about have already got variable signs.
No, they don't. We have about a dozen schools in the district that have variable signs, and a lot of them, some of them are 40 children present, which is not a legal sign, a sign that is legally enforceable under the rules, so we need to look to transition those to the new signage. So what we're just doing is we need to meet the requirements of the new setting of speed limit rule, which came in last year, and we've got until June next year, so 2026, to get all of those signs in place.
The requirements are static signs, aren't they?
No, then we can use a combination
I
of
know we
static
can
and
Yeah,
variable.
could you, Councillor, could you, Joe, finish please? Thank you.
So yeah, we can use a combination of static. The static signs are only new, they've only just been introduced to the law.
But we don't, what I was getting at, we don't have to use electronic signs, is that correct? We can, if we wanted to, just use static signs, and the existing major ones use their electronic ones there. So
We need to understand the safety impacts behind that, so that's the bit that we will be bringing to you. Yeah.
Thank you. So for councillor meetings, we've done the goals really important. So councillor meetings.
Just following up on from Councillor Williams' question, on that page 10 there that we were just discussing, in the speed limits or outside schools, it says in here that subsidies been assumed within this budget, and we did talk about that there was some subsidy available for that signage. On what level is that, and do we have to apply for that, or?
Yes, we do have to apply for it, and it would be at our standard bar rate, so that's 51%, so yeah, that's what we would be applying for. That applications are currently open for that funding, and we are just working on doing a base data so we can get it through.
I know that's how long is it? It's a strict question, but how confident are we in actually getting the subsidy?
Sorry,
How confident are we to get the?
very confident. I think this fund has been set aside specifically because there's an awareness that all councils have to comply with the rule.
That's fantastic, because there is a lot of money wrapped in signs, so cheers, thank you.
Thanks, councillor meetings. Councillor Redmond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Under capital projects, and it doesn't have a page number, I'm referring to the old Waimakariri Bridge renewals. And the answer to my question was that we're paying about a quarter of round figures of that work with Christchurch City and NZTA. We're replacing bridge railings that have been there for 60 years quite adequately, but we now have a higher standard, and we now have to look at something that meets a higher level of compliance.
I think there's two things. The existing rails are very tired. They need significant work to either clean them all down, paint them and put them back on, or we take them off and replace them with a vehicle compliant barrier. We have had vehicles hanging over the side of that bridge. It is a very real safety issue.
Right, well, I also ask, I've driven over the bridge, and it's not a bridge I drive over very frequently, but the deck on that bridge is appalling. The joints, it's like going over jelly bars, driving over the bridge now. I just wondered, is there any provision in here for maintenance of the deck and the joints?
Yes, there is, yeah. So there are planned works around some deck repairs as well, and some joining repairs.
Right, and they're in the budget here somewhere.
Yes, they
Sorry, I didn't see.
That's why I asked for that priority. You know, it's more important to our district than it is probably to the others in some ways. So the merits of that, yes, need to come back here, but that's why I've asked for that, because I think that's something that I personally think would be great for us to be taking the lead on rather than another district. Okay, Councillor Goldsworth.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I think I've just answered my own question, but in G, the additional funding requested, is that CapEx or OPEX?
that is CapEx. So that is CapEx. So the minor safety program is improvements, and they're often very low cost but high benefit improvements. So there can be things like doubling up on stop signs and intersection where we have people running straight through. Those sort of improvements are capital, so that signs and markings.
Thank you. Councillor Fulton.
Thank you. In my papers, page 10, capital budget, replacement renewal Skew Bridge, talks about continued development of the business case works priced in the LP. What is a business case in this context? It's not identifying surely the need or the feasibility, but what does the business case look like? And also, secondary to that, service implications talks about retaining existing levels of service. We're not looking to improve the levels of service. That's part of the project.
So first, in terms of a business case, a business case is something that needs to be developed which supports investment, and the business case gets submitted to NZTA, which is basically foundation information that they make their investment decisions around. So it is very much a financial strategic case for why we need to replace a particular piece of infrastructure or do a particular piece of work. So
directed at NZTA funding purposes, obviously.
Yes, it is.
Rather than internally, yeah.
Yes, I think they are a very good process though in terms of ensuring that we are investing at the right time and that we're looking for the options. So again, making sure we're doing that money. Retain existing levels of service. Yes, I get your point. It is definitely, we will be looking for a bridge that is providing a higher level of service than we have there now, one that is more appropriate for the importance of the route that structure is on.
Is there by implication the chance that the funding will actually only enable us to retain the levels of service, and because there's a constraint in funding, it means we can't do as much as we would like in the design and function of the route.
No, I don't think that in terms of if you're talking about the bridge width.
The width, the safety, the volume of traffic.
Just build back what was in, it wouldn't be NZTA's expectations because there's also, we need to think about current roading standards, and a lot of these bridges were built 100 plus years ago, and as such they were appropriate for the time. But now standards have changed, vehicles have got bigger. If you look at tractors, they used to be, small, and they can be huge these days. So we do still build back to the current day standard.
Thank you. Yeah.
Just clarification, really. I see the Mafeking Bridge project moved out a year or 2 years, is it? I just wonder that often health and safety issues raised on that bridge, particularly around the chain mesh netting that's along the sides of it, and the children going to school with their bikes to catch it and cut themselves or open themselves up as they're going along there. Does this mean that none of that will be replaced? I'm just trying to get my head around the project of the MAF gang. And I mean, it is a health and safety issue, there is no question about that. When will that, or how would that be dealt with, given that that money's pushed out?
That's a really good question. What we will do is, so the money for that widening work was to actually widen out the structure, so there's a bit more space. Given that that will be delayed with the proposal, we'll look at whether there's any further maintenance or sections of that chain rail, I guess fencing or side panels that we can look to do something with in the short term as a lower cost intervention without replacing. We probably need to be careful not to replace the whole thing if we look at the wider structural widening in the shorter term.
Thank you.
Thank you. No further questions? Seem to be any signal amendments. Joanne, I think you've done a superb job putting this together under particularly challenging circumstances. As we've often said, the roading budgets completely on our process versus the government's, NZPA's, it's all over alignment. If there's one change a government could do would be to get those a little better in sync, so that the national processes align with local. Given that we're all creatures of statute, one would have thought that was easy to do, but apparently not. But we'll keep working on it. I'm on a national discussion on these matters, and certainly one that's regularly been raised at local government level, so we're hopeful that we continue it. One thing I do note in that, the questions that Councillor Fulton was raising, certainly around the Skew Bridge, they're all priorities for us in terms of getting advanced, including, I think we should be clear, the excellent job our team have done getting $500,000 of funding through central government for the Eastern Link project. So that's to build the business case and to do that detailed work. So I think that's an outstanding achievement here to get that project considered. But it's the whole of network that we're considering, and I know that there's a document about to be shared with you all that explains that completely. Because I struggled with it if you try to go to meetings and saying, well, these are our priorities. It was very difficult. You had to reel off half an hour of description rather than a document now that maps all that out. Has been an excellent initiative, and I appreciate the work that's been done on that, which will be shared with you all to help you, hopefully, not only with your understanding, but in discussions you hear when people say about Southbrook and traffic issues. Well, here's our plan. If we get all this, it'll address those particular matters, for example. All right, is there any other comment anyone wants to raise here before we move on from rating? Before we deal with Collins, the matter you raised just before, Jerry? No? Thank you. So do you want to deal with the piece you were talking about Colin now?
Happy to leave that until we get to the PD.
Okay, that's fine. I'm just checking because he's just joined the room. So I think we're at that point, with roading, that we might have our lovely caterer, thank you, former Councillor Doody, has kindly joined and will join us for some morning tea. So if we break now until say 22 to 11, it's 20 minutes for a morning tea break. Thank you everyone, we'll be back here at that time, meeting the June.